Hi, I'm Stephanie Rozzo. Welcome to Nature Sketch Crate's American Jaguar step-by-step painting instructions video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to paint the American Jaguar using Nature Sketch Crate's step-by-step painting instructions. First, collect all your materials and make sure they're ready to go. This is just a sketch. Relax, have fun, and don't worry too much if you think you may have made a mistake. Let's get started. Step 1, transfer the image to the watercolor paper. First, you want to tape the image to the back of the watercolor paper. You can do it on the top or the side. Just make sure you're not covering up any of the parts of the image that you want to transfer. Open it up and place the graphite transfer paper dark side down, light side up on top of the watercolor paper and press it down. Just make sure it's flat. Pick any spot to get started. I think I'm going to go ahead and start on the tail and just transfer one of those lines. So once you've transferred a little bit of the line, go ahead and check and see how it's transferring. This looks about right. I used about a medium pressure on my pencil to transfer that. You don't want to press too hard, but you also don't want to press too light. You want to be able to see the marks. You'll be using those marks at the end as well as throughout the whole painting. And then just go ahead and go throughout and transfer the lines by tracing over them. And put on a podcast, maybe an audio book, maybe just some music and relax and take your time. And if you make any mistakes, don't worry too much, it's just a sketch. Just go ahead and go throughout and transfer all those lines. Every once in a while, go ahead and check to make sure all your lines are transferring. You've got everything transferred over that you want. When you think you have all the lines transferred, go ahead and flip it up and down and look at it to see if you've missed some, so that you can add those in. And if you end up missing some even after this step, it's okay. This is just a sketch. And if you like, you can go ahead and transfer the common name by outlining it and the scientific name. You can also transfer the whole punchlines if you'd like, but I am going to keep those off. So when you're done, remove the graphite transfer paper and save it for later. It can be used over and over and over. And then gently remove the transfer image from the watercolor paper. Remove the tape, and if it tears off a little bit, that means you can't use this tape again. That's okay. Throw that away, but I am going to use this transfer image to protect my painting while I'm working. Get your kneaded eraser, and knead it if you need to. If it needs to have a clear gray spot and not a dark spot. And go ahead and remove any smudges or lighten any lines with this that you like. I like the way mine looks. I don't really see a lot of smudges. I don't really see any lines that I need to have lightened. So I'm gonna leave it like that. And when you're done, you can go ahead and move on to step 2. Step 2, paint in the wet light Jaguar yellow. So first you'll want to mix the Jaguar yellow. Shake up the paint. 1H Hansa yellow light, 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. and 2 drops of 24H burnt umber. And you can squeeze just a little bit of water or add a little bit of water from your cup if you're not using a water brush, and mix that up. And you're going to be using a real wet light, so paint without very much pigment, so it's more water than pigment. So I'm going to pull a little bit to the side, add some water to it. And then once that's well mixed, I'm going to dab it off onto my towel and test it on my test paper here. Looks like it's the right color to me, that light wet A color. Pick a little bit up and then go ahead and apply it to the Jaguar as I see in step 2's image. And that's pretty much going to go over the entire body. I'm going to reserve some areas. Space above the eye there. And if you paint into those spaces that maybe should have been white, it's okay. As you can see, I got a little bit of paint in those places. And you can refer to your final reference image that's large or the small image on your step-by-step instructions. And when you need to, go ahead and pick up a little bit more paint. You can test it on your test paper to make sure it's the right color. And it's best to work from one side to the next. And the paint will dry while you're working, so the paint on the head is probably already dry. You know when to pick up more paint when it gets really light on your paper. And you need to pick up a little bit more of that paint pigment from your palette. When you're done, go ahead and clean off your brush on your towel and then move on to step 3. Step 3, paint in the wet light Jaguar orange. So you want 1 drop of the 24H burnt umber. Make sure it's well mixed. Ten drops of the Hansa yellow light 1H. And 1 drop of the 27H vermilion hue. Go ahead and add a little bit of water to that. If you have a water brush, you can squeeze it a little bit to release some water, or you can add some water from a cup or whatever container you're using for water. And we're going to be applying a wet light color, so go ahead and take it to the side like we did before and add some water to it. Dab it on your towel and then test it on your test paper. Looks like the right color to me. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more, dab it on my towel, and And then I'm going to go ahead and apply it like I see in step 3. It's going to go over most of the area we already painted here. I'm going to reserve just a little bit more areas to show some of this Jaguar yellow color. So we'll start with the darker color up here by the back. Darker, more concentrated. It's the same color we're working from with C, but when we apply it to the back, it's going to be a little darker and we work down. The paint will run out of our brush and end up being kind of light. So you see it's a little darker here and a little lighter there. It creates kind of a natural gradient. And if it's not light enough or dark enough, you can add a little bit more paint if you like, while it's still wet. And if you get out of the lines, like I said, it's just a sketch, no big deal. So starting once you pick up that paint in the darker areas on the image, and then as it runs out of your brush, it'll be a little bit lighter. You can see it's starting to be a little bit of a lighter color pigment. Just creating kind of a natural gradient. So when I first put the paint down, it's a little dark. In this area. And the longer I use this brush without getting more paint, the lighter it's going to get, and I can work towards those lighter areas. And if it's a little light still compared to the image, you can add just a little bit more paint like I'm doing right now. But it's a sketch, so don't overwork it. The tail just needs a tiny bit more paint. It's okay to put that paint in that wet area like that. I'm going to clean off my brush and then move on to step 4. Step 4, paint in the Jaguar brown. So take 2 drops of the 24H burnt umber, 1, 2. Add a little bit of water. Take a little bit of that to the side and add lots of water. Dab it off onto your towel and test it on your test paper. So I think I could leave that a little bit darker. Now, it's a wet light, not the wettest lightest, so it's going to be something without too much water added in between the dry and the dark and the wet light. That's still a little dark. I might take a little trial and error. So I'm adding just a tiny bit more water and mixing it in there, dabbing it on my towel, and testing it again. That looks about right. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. It's good to start on the lighter side. You can always add more paint. And then I'm just going to add it like I see in step 4 to the color, to the eye, the spots, and then a little bit of shading to the legs, the neck, and the head, as you can see. So we'll start maybe with the head. If you still have too much color or paint, just dab it off onto your towel at any time. And it's also true if you don't have enough color on your paintbrush, you can also always pick some up at any time. So just go ahead, go throughout and add the color to the Jaguar. Don't worry too much about getting it exact, just similar is good enough. Once you've added all of the Jaguar brown, go ahead and clean your brush off on your towel and move on to step 5. You will want your painting to be dry before you start the next step. So go ahead and you can dab it to feel that it's dry. If it's still wet and you move your hand over it, you could smear the paint. If that's what you want it to look like, that's fine. Go ahead and do it. But I don't recommend it. So I'm just dabbing it. It feels dry, so I'll move on and start step 5. Step 5, paint in the dry, dark Jaguar orange and red orange. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the Jaguar orange throughout. And so using a dry dark, but not the driest darkest, so I don't want it to be too dark, but much darker than the first color we used. So I'm going to add a little bit of water, dab it off onto my towel, and check it out on my test paper here. Looks like the right color to me. So I'm going to add it just like I see in step 5's image. And that's coming out a little too dark, so I'm dabbing it off onto my towel. And I'll just move it. So I had a little bit too much paint on my paintbrush, and that's why it came out like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this throughout the Jaguar, just like in the image. Always feel free to pick up more paint or dab your paintbrush off onto your towel whenever you need. So if you don't have enough paint anymore, go ahead and pick up some more. If it's too light, and if it's too dark or too much water is being put onto your paper, go ahead and dab that off onto your towel. Sometimes even the water brush will start releasing just a little bit of water, a little more than I want. Or I'll pick up a little bit too much color, paint pigment. And again, this is a sketch, so don't get too caught up in it. Just coloring in this image with the paint. And let the paint kind of land where it ends up landing, and doesn't need to be exactly like the image. Yeah, just a little bit more. Like I said, it's better to work lighter to darker than to work a little too dark. It's pretty hard to go backwards when you're working with the watercolor. So when you're done with that, go ahead and clean off your brush and mix the Jaguar red orange. To mix the Jaguar red orange, you want to take 1 drop of the vermilion hue 27H, and 1 drop of the 24H burnt umber. And you can mix that up. You see it's very dark. And then take a little bit of that like we did before and add some water to it to the side of that originally mixed color. Then dab it off onto your towel, test it on your test paper, and that looks good to me. So I'm going to add it to the nose. Be careful if this is still wet not to smudge it with your hand. Notice again, that's what you want. And in order to get a nice tip for the nose on your brush, just kind of roll it. You can do it on your paper, you can do it on your towel. Just kind of roll the tip and then apply it to the center, and the watercolor will kind of move out to the edges just a little bit. And then clean off your brush and move on to step 6. Step 6, paint in the Jaguar Deep Brown. So you want to mix the Jaguar Deep Brown by taking 2 drops of the 21H sepia. 1, 2, and adding some water to it. You don't want the fully concentrated color on the paper. So a little bit of water, dab it off onto your towel and test it on your test paper. Looks good. The barrel's a little bit loose. I'm going to tighten that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and add it to the spots as I see in the image in step 6. And you can use your transfer image to protect your painting from your hand. And don't worry too much about it being exact. Remember, again, this is just a sketch, just for fun. And it's still going to look great at the end no matter what. My brush is releasing a lot of water, so it's full. Maybe I'm putting a little pressure, not realizing, and so just picked up a little bit more paint and dabbed my brush off. You can follow along with the dots in your image by putting your hand on the image and kind of moving it along as you move through the image and add paints, just to help you keep track. Like I have a little hair at the end of this little white clear piece of fuzz. I just pull it off. Now that you've added all of the Jaguar Deep Brown, you can move on to step 7. Step 7, add ink lines. Use the black 005 micron to redraw the lines you transferred in step 1. Don't redraw the spots at this time, just the rest of the lines. You can use your transfer image to help you figure out where to add those lines. You can also use it to outline the common name and draw in the scientific name. When you're done, go ahead and move on to the 0.1 micron. Use the 0.1 black micron. I'm going to go ahead and write in the scientific name. And then just thicken some of the lines you see in A. So not a lot, just a few here and there that look a little thicker. Mostly you'll be thickening them with the 0.8 micron. Use the 0.8 black micron to fill in the common name, darken any lines that need to be darkened and thickened, and to darken up the spots a little bit. You don't want to darken the entire spot because you see in your final reference image and in 7B, you'll want to darken just parts of those spots and leave the other ones with the watercolor color. It's a great opportunity to add any dots or spots that you may have missed, or redefine some lines. Really corrects any mistakes that you think you may have made, or change it to look a little bit different from. And leaving some of these spots slightly transparent with the watercolor makes it just a little bit more realistic looking, gives a little more dimension. So you don't want to color the entire spot in. Now you're done. We're done. Great job. You've created a unique painting that only you could do. Next, you have some options of what to do with this painting when you're done with it. You can punch holes in it and add it to your sketchbook. You can frame it and display it around your house or gift it to a friend. Also, make sure to display it on our Facebook fan art page. I'd love to see it. Check out the Nature Sketch Crate website to shop for future crates and sign up for our newsletter for regular updates. Thank you for joining me. I hope you had fun and had a chance to relax a little. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel.